Everybody. Today is Tuesday, December 17th. The time is 3:05. Today's Rules Administration Procedures Committee begin. First item on the agenda is a call to order. Will you please call the roll?
Chairperson Ron Warman.
Here.
Vice Chair Carl Franco.
Here.
Alderman Edward J. Bugg.
Here.
Alderman Dan Barrero.
Here.
Alderwoman Patty Smith.
Here.
5 present.
Next item on the agenda, 24-0916, approval of the minutes from the Rules Administration and
moved.
Procedures Committee held on November 19th, 2024. A motion by Alderman Smith.
Second.
Second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries 5-0. Clerk, anybody here for public comment?
No one has signed up.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, 24-0966, a resolution reappointing 2 members, Nina Armarosa and Aaron Lachinga, for a 3-year term, and appointing 6 new members, Curtis Wilson, Robert D. Maria, Francis Lopez, Ashley Dingle, Janali Roca, and Elizabeth Roop to the Music Events and Entertainment Commission.
So moved.
Any questions,
Second.
comments? Hearing none, had a motion by Alderman Smith, a second by Alderman Frankel. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda, 24-0974, a resolution appointing 6 members to the Sister Cities Commission. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, RAP Committee. Alex Boyd with the Mayor's Office. Before you, we have the 6 inaugural appointments to the Sister Cities Commission, which the City Council approved the creation of back in April of 2024. So similar to the Aging and Community Advisory Board, we are going to appoint a first round of members with the hope of any publicity from these appointments will generate additional interest, and we'll be able to identify the remaining 3 members. So the individuals up for appointment are Corey Whitehead. He is a Ward 7 resident, and he works in mission advancement at Christianity Today. We have Cynthia Gamboa, also a Ward 7 resident. She's the Director of Development at the Marie Wilkinson Food Pantry. Calendaria Moreno, another Ward 7. She's a law firm intake specialist. Lizbeth Barunda, she's a non-resident. She is the HR manager at Hotel Indigo Riverwalk. Mary Tarling is also a non-resident. She's the Director of Global Engagement at Aurora University. And then we have Chris Faber from the 4th Ward. He is the Director of Business Attraction and Financial Services at Invest Aurora. So with the remaining seats, we are looking to engage with the, I know healthcare is an area of interest that we're looking to identify someone. And then we do have some tentative candidates for the other 2 seats. So with that, I can take any questions, and I do have Martha Paschke and Lizette from her department here as well if there are questions.
Questions or comments from the Alderman
So the
Franco?
2 that do not live in Aurora,
Mhm.
I'm assuming that they have a special knowledge, background to make them attractive to us, even though they're not living there.
Sure. So Mary Tarling, she's the Director of Global Engagement at Aurora University, and that's a very natural fit for this commission in terms of what we'll be looking to do to identify and connect with the cities throughout the world, frankly. So she'll be a great fit. And then the other non-resident, in terms of her working in the hotel industry, was of great interest, and she is directly connected to Aurora. Her children attend Aurora schools, so she's very actively engaged with the schools. Did you want to talk?
Yeah, I can just add briefly to what Alex already highlighted. The one that works, Martha Paschke, Director of Innovation Strategy. Liz Barunda, who has the work experience in the hotel industry, was born and raised in Aurora, so while she's not a current resident, she has close ties to the city and a deep interest in the city. And the other non-resident, Mary Tarling, the Director of Global Engagement at Aurora University, lived in Aurora from 1993 to 2004, and maintains close ties to the city, not just through the university, but through the community as well.
I have a question.
Alderman Smith?
Just had a comment, but go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, Not really question as I'm questioning you, but obviously we see 3 people from Ward 7.
Yep.
Yeah, so I just wanted to question that. Are they the only people that came forward that inquired about it, or how did that happen?
So I will say that the applicant pool for this commission has been a little bit smaller than is typical. We have taken our time with this. Again, I mentioned it was created in April, and we're here in December with the first round because staff is looking to move forward with our relationship with the Sister Cities organization. And we are hoping to get, again, drum up additional interest from additional representatives throughout the city. We always like to have all of the wards represented, but it's also, you know, each commission is a little bit unique, and all of these individuals bring something different to the table. So we felt confident and comfortable bringing these people forward.
And
But you're
where-
right, it's not typical.
Yeah, and where would I find, getting ready to send out a neighborhood newsletter, where would I find a little write-up for what someone would, you know, what it's about, you know, how to perhaps gain interest in my ward?
So there is information on the city website under the boards and commissions tab, but
Okay.
we'll do, Martha just volunteered to do a little write-up for you.
Yeah, that would be
We'd
great.
happy- Yep.
I would just add that in with my newsletter, if I could do that by, you know,
And if you're going to do that, please remind people
your
that,
newsletter.
that we have, yes, that we have vacancies on a number of boards and commissions, and we
Yes.
have been working to push that out. This is a new one, and new boards are always exciting to be a part of, and this one, again, is unique. So I absolutely would love if you
Yes.
or anyone would highlight it, but if you just want to throw a plug in there in general, that'd be great.
We'll talk offline, but
Sure.
that's going to be my January newsletter for.
I love it.
For
Yep.
my neighborhood, our boards and commissions and what we
Perfect.
have available.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Alderman Barrero.
Yes, how many seats did you say are
This is,
remaining?
3. It's a 9-member commission.
Well, 3 are remaining.
Mhm.
I'm just looking at this and, you know, just reflecting on the diversity in our community.
Mhm.
It'd be nice to have other groups represented as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just by geographically, but.
Yep, and that's why we're coming forward with 6 and hoping to find an additional 3. But I think you'll be happy when you meet the individuals. They're great representatives. They'll do a great job at the commission. It's been a little bit challenging this year, but we always appreciate help and people getting the word out about these vacancies.
Motion to approve?
Any other
Second.
questions or comments?
Second.
Motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda, 24-0985, a resolution authorizing the appointment of Richard Todes to the Grand Army of the Republic Memorial Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this? Hearing none, I had a motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda, 24-0986, a resolution approving the reappointments of David Telner, Michael Carasso, and Joshua Pfeffer to the Aurora Veterans Advisory Board.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this? Had a motion by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda, this is a discussion item, 24-0994, a discussion of the Aldermanic Initiative Funds Ordinance. And before we start here, I don't know how this is going to go, but wait to be called on to be spoken to. I don't have any arguments or any of that kind of stuff, so please wait until you're called on to speak.
Oh,
So,
we can't argue?
okay, let's do that.
Christmas.
So I'll open to any questions or comments.
You want to start? I'll start.
Alderman Smith?
I'll start. I'll probably have more comments as we go down, but, you know, I believe you, the chairman of finance brought this up in their last meeting. This ordinance was put together with the right intentions, and it was needed. We did need some clarity, we did need some rules, and we did need some guidelines. And I think in some areas, we did do a really good job, but I think in other areas, we put a little too much restriction on some of our funding, how it is handled. We are not a department of the city of Aurora. We shouldn't be using the same forms as a department of the city of Aurora, so I think we need to make sure we address that as we move forward as far as how the Alderman's office handles our financial information. I do believe that we need to make some changes in the ordinance that we currently have, or make some amendments in it. I don't believe that any one alderman should have any say-so over another alderman. We're all equally elected in our chairs. I don't believe that any one staff person should have any say-so over an alderman. I believe that this needs to be worded as we are working together, partnership, working, collaborating. So I think some of that wording needs to be changed. And I also believe that, and Alderman Franco and I talked about this extensively, we need to expand on our capital, I don't want to say definition, but what we look at in our wards as capital versus what the definition of capital is, because again, we're not a department, and we need to be able to expand on the needs of our ward. And the word that Alderman Franco used over and over again that I liked was permanent. So I will start with that. I do believe that there needs to be some changes in this, but we're getting there. I just don't think that we're all the way there yet. So that's where I will leave that.
Alderman Franco?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm gonna get right down to a couple of things that I think housekeeping we need to really address. So I looked at the grant programs. If you have a grant program, I know, and I'll just speak to mine, but I think very similar in finances. If you got a grant program where you give out $25,000 and people utilize it in a given year, and you have $25,000 to spend, you can't do a cleanup day, you can't send a postage, you can't do a shred event, a lot of things you can't do. So my first suggestion would be any grant program that basically deals with landscaping, which they consider capital, anything with permanence, anything like that should be put into the capital fund bucket. I truly believe that. Unless that grant program basically says there is nothing in here with any kind of infrastructure, any kind of permanence at all, and I don't know that there's any, but hardly any of those, if any, then I think those should go into the capital funds, because you can make an argument that, for example, mine, I could do landscaping in it, I've done some sewer work with it, those are all capital type of projects. So I would say, take those out and put them in the other one. The other thing that I would suggest we do too, and we'd have to reword it for this, I would believe, is any kind of correspondence with our constituents should go into that. So you do a newsletter, $4,500 to $5,000, that's just once a year. You do mailings, you do anything like that, those are big chunks of money that won't allow you to do other things for communicating, maybe about permanent structures, capital projects. So you could be communicating that, and yet that goes into a different fund. So I would say right off the get-go, it would probably give us so much more flexibility to do what we wanted to do, what we've historically done, staying in the structure and moving those two components out of the non-capital and putting them into capital, whether we have to rename it or not. And I just think those are two easy ones right off the get-go that I would like to see how the rest of the committee feels about that.
So I just want to clarify. So you're saying for a grant program, and speaking to yours, so you're saying it's 25,000. So either the entire 25,000 gets moved to capital or whatever we decide to call that, or are we going to split hairs? I don't, that's not the right word, I guess, but split hairs and say, okay, this grant is for whatever, but this is for landscape, so that falls in there? Or is there going to just be a blanket grant program falls into the capital?
So I think it would be easier, just take the grant program and throw it in there. So for example, if my grant program dealt with something other than capital on a given occasion, but basically 95% of it's always gonna go to capital, throw that into the thing. Let's not nickel and dime and say, for this particular thing, I gotta come back to finance because that one thing. I think if it's made up where the intent is to do permanence type of things, any landscaping, which is already defined in there, throw it in there and don't have to worry about it again. Because we do know at finance, you have the opportunity to come, take a capital fund, and move it back to non-capital if the finance committee agrees on it, if for certain things. And that's good to have that discretion, but I think some things we just get out of there automatically. You don't have to deal with that going forward. That would be my one. And then postage and mailings and correspondence with your constituents. It could be that you're corresponding about capital projects. So I just really, I think it would be smarter for us to throw that in there. It gives us more flexibility, and you can make the argument it ties into what you're trying to do for your ward. Could be for capital, could be for permits, could be for structure. So I think that would be warranted in addition.
What if your grant program doesn't, and I don't know if anybody's it doesn't, but what if a grant program doesn't revolve around capital?
See, and that's where,
Well, then it stays in the other bucket,
We
and
need to
then if you.
rewrite our grant programs is what.
Well, all right, so I'm trying to think, in my particular one, I can't see anything that I've ever approved or would approve that wasn't some
Minor
sort
on,
of, some
yes.
sort of permanence
I
to
don't
it.
know
And I'd like to
anybody
use the word permanence.
Does
There's just
anybody
nothing.
Yes,
anybody
So-
else think of a grant
Yours are capital.
program that may
Right.
not
Mine
fall
are
into a,
yeah.
yeah, Alderman Bug?
Let me go back to the beginning, though.
Yeah.
I agree with Alderwoman Smith, changes need to be made. I agree with Alderman Franco on changing things that go into two pots. However, well, let's start the most important thing, and legal can chime in if they can. When I read through this again, maybe we all did, in number 9, unfortunately, we put an actual year in here, 2024. So actually, our document does not contemplate the future. It does not contemplate 2025 going forward. So we definitely have to change that. Because none of us will technically get any money in 2025. So we have to change that. Because what legal said last time, and of course they're correct, capital is a term of art, it's a legal term. So you just kind of can't say this is capital today and tomorrow it's not. That's not the way things work in the state and the federal. It's not the way things work. What we have to do
No mansplaining.
is change the name of the bucket. So capital and infrastructure and communications, something like that.
I would agree.
The other bucket would be community enhancement.
I would agree.
Yeah, you can't redefine capital exactly, so.
Yeah.
Right.
So you just have to
Right.
add more things onto the title.
Sure.
That's what we said, isn't it?
You asked, are there other grant programs? So I have it could be called a grant program. And it is basically for funds for the HOAs and the different block parties. That is not a capital expenditure. It never reaches the threshold of $3,000, which is our threshold to, write it up and present and take it to Rich and all the bells and whistles. It's a small amount. They do a block party, they turn in the receipt, and I give them $300 for their bounce house. So that's just an example of one that would not go over to the, I don't know if there's others, there may be. So that is the first thing I want to discuss. I have something else I want to discuss, but I think if we do those things, I think we're going down the right path, getting there. And, yeah, so.
Can I
And if anyone else has an idea on the name, I'm fine with, I just kind of capital infrastructure and
I like-
communications.
What if we
Like that
added,
definition of doing that, so I make one point, I'm
ahead.
sorry. So are you saying that particular grant program that you're talking about that's for block parties and what have you, so that should be what I'll call the capital program right now, call it that, or you think that should remain in that?
No, that's community enhancement.
So that should
Yeah,
stay in the community.
yeah, it should
So we
stay.
should define grant programs that it has to somehow, I don't know how to do
Yeah,
that.
the bucket shouldn't be called capital and grant programs.
Yeah.
Because there's all different
Yeah.
kinds of grant programs. So, yeah, capital, infrastructure, and
Yeah.
communications.
So the intent of that grant program has to be in, like you said, sidewalks and what have you.
Well, right,
something
so
like that, yeah.
I think those are perfect starting points, because that frees up, you think about postage and communications, that could be $7,000 to $10,000 of your 25, just telling people what you're doing. So, and because, and I don't want to say historically, but because we do have a lot of money there, and we're only going to get, as of now, $50,000 for that we'll call it the capital bucket right now, which probably will increase at a couple of years, that's fine too. I think this is a good starting point to free up some flexibility. Because really, I know I complained to you about this, 3 or 4 years ago, this is what I wanted. And nobody wanted to talk to me about it. I don't want to bring up old wounds, but that's like, I was trying to come up with, what do we do now? How do we keep that in order, but put some structure on it so that we actually have to abide by that? And this is kind of where we're getting at now. We want to be able to have people do historically what they did within reason, have some structure, understand that you have to spend your money, and I think we're accomplishing that. So I think this is the next step to allow us to get to really what we like to do with our monies. But it's right and reasonable. That's the other part too. You can't have $700,000 in your account and saying, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. No, you're not, because that $7,000 should go back to the community. This is gonna push this along, so that's good. So I think we're on the doorstep. I think if we could do those two things, right off the get-go, and then we could either do the wording now, or we could look at the wording later on. But I think, and we know this,
Let's
there's some
discuss it.
people out there, some older people out there that are freaking out. If we go to COW today and say, this is what our suggestions are gonna be going forward, I think that will help them a big sigh of relief, because they're gonna free up funds that allow them to do the other things with the non-capital money. I think that's really what our goal is anyway. I would say that was, from the start, that's really what we're trying to accomplish, so I think we're right there.
And Chairman, could we address the capital or non-capital in the grant? This is a question. In our grant program, like I could we gotta bring it next year anyways, I could rewrite my grant program and it could say, these are capital improvements. If you've got a grant, your grant program might not say that, your grant program would say that.
Or use the definition in this particular ordinance that it.
Do it into your,
into
right
the
in your grant program.
itself. Yeah, I mean,
Because that would take care of everything that we would need to do for the grants they would become capital.
for not being able to, or not having a grant program, if that's, I would rely more on everybody sitting here, and then obviously we move forward if that's something that's feasible for
I think
current
that
grant
makes it
Well,
program,
easier.
so.
it could, but I would say this though. Crystal? How many grant programs you think that we have? She'll be up there. How many grant programs would you say offhand that are out there from the Alderman?
I
State
would
your name
say,
and
You more?
Crystal Colon,
There you
Alderman's
go.
Office Supervisor. I would say out of the 12 aldermen, we have about 9 grant programs out there.
So I think, so based on that, that's not too cumbersome for us. So I think in a future RAP meeting, we can have all those grant programs in front of us and take a look at it without even renaming it. Oh, that fits,
Yep.
oh, that doesn't fit, just by the nature of what they're doing. And then we can do this every year, because we do this every year anyway, they gotta approve and say, all right, this one goes in the, we'll call it the capital bucket, this one does, this one does, this one does, this other one doesn't.
So
And
define
now they're
that
good for the year.
as
and
they
we just
come
look at-
forward, yeah.
And so you might not even have to
Yeah.
change the names, just look at what is in there, or
This is a
his,
capital grant.
right, type of things you've done in the past. And that should be enough to get us. We're trying to be restrictive, but we don't want to be too anal, and that's why I don't know if we have to get into the naming thing. If like, this is what it covers, there's some permanence infrastructure in there, throw it in, let's go. I think
Restrictive
you
and
make it-
control, we gotta be careful in the control. We can restrict, but we shouldn't control.
Right, but we don't want to make it so hard that everybody's got to jump through hoops all the time to get anything done. So I think this is kind of
So we
there.
agree on that.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So I would say, I just wanted to get an idea, because that's not too much. I mean, we could go through that in like 20 minutes, easy.
Easily.
Yeah, so we can do that. So I would suggest we do that going forward.
And I don't look at this as restrictive and controlling, I just look for a process, is all
Right,
I'm
sure,
asking for,
right,
so.
right.
So I don't look at it as restrictive, but just more, or controlling for that matter, but just a process that everybody
Right.
can agree on, so.
Well, yeah.
Alderman Bug, you had some other.
And I think both, what Alderwoman Smith said, on those grant programs, you have to write it up with Mr. Jacobs.
Yeah, yeah.
And so in there, you should say, just like when IT wants some money, they say it's coming out of this bucket. Says it right there in the legislative memo. So Alderwoman Smith would write down, this is coming out of capital and infrastructure and
Right, right.
communications, and, you know, it's going forward in RAP.
Right.
So,
So how do we wanna redefine that line then?
Well,
You guys had some good things.
I think, you know, we could always, you could throw 100 words in there and just abbreviate them all. You know, so you just said capital.
Permanent, any permanent structure?
Well, he said, I mean, I could go either way, infrastructure, permanence, I do like communications in there too. So whatever words you want to use in between, whether it be infrastructure or permanence or both.
Both. Let's
Yeah,
do
I mean,
both.
it's not permanent, mailer's not permanent, so I think it'd have to be
Well,
communications.
communications would be another
Then
title
I-
along with that.
do
So
you
you got
think-
that in there for sure.
Should include, I know the word cleanups and what have you, it's starting to get
Capital.
kind of expensive, so something like that as well too. But also too, I want to be careful not, again, I think we're almost, I don't want to say rewriting, but redefining what the original thing was, capital improvements. You know, now it's capital improvements plus this, and this. I don't want to lose sight of that some of this money should in fact be used for, when I say permanent, like something permanent as well too. I don't want to get away from the where, oh, I don't have anything permanent because I did a war cleanup, I did
Right.
this, and this, and there's really no. in communications, and that wipes out your 50,000 or something like that, so.
Well, and I don't think that that's, to some degree, I disagree with that, because I believe if that's what your ward needs in that year, that's what you do with your ward, and that's what the ward aldermen specifically are for, is to know the needs of their ward. So, if we're dealing with just the 75 and not the backlog that many of us have, there's not much capital you can do in a ward with just 75 grand. I mean, it's gonna take some savings, we all know that. So we can't be talking on both sides of our mouth here. If we get down to the point where we're only spending the 75, with everything we just talked about, putting this into communication infrastructure, whatever else we decided, capital, permanent, it's not gonna be hard to spend 75 when you do that. And so then you brought up, Chairman, where do the cleanups fall? Where are they gonna fall? What bucket are we suggesting they fall under?
And I think that's my point. If you move communications at 8,000, let's say, per ward, and then the ward cleanups and shred events and things like that, I mean, ward cleanups are how much in general? I know some.
7,500.
Yeah, so we're at 17, you're at 15,000
Oh, I know.
alone, just in those two things right there, and then that leaves 35,000 for capital, and I don't expect anybody to find a capital project for 35,000 only, but as you can tell, the 4 million that we have sitting in the bank right now that's saved for capital projects, I mean, there is a process, as far as savings and doing, and allocating certain things, so, but if you're 15,000 deep with just two things alone, add on a grant program, and then you're at 20, 25 maybe, and then it flips the other way. You got 50,000 for, as it sits right now, non-capital projects, and 25,000 for capital projects, so.
I think one of the things that we need to strive for, and again, this is my opinion, is just for this conversation, for this section, we need to stop looking at what we have in our savings and start thinking about what we have in a year, in a budget. We'll
I would
talk
agree,
about
yeah.
the 75 right now. So when we think about just the 75, and we break down what we do in our wards, that's not going to be a difficult amount of money to spend. And using the word difficult is not exactly the appropriate word. But that amount of money will be spent in just the year-to-year needs in a ward. We all need to clean up our budgets from back. We all know that, and I think that's one of the best things that this ordinance has done. It's kind of kicked us all to get moving and do that. But I think as we deal with this this specific ordinance, we really need to focus on what we're going to have year to year to year. And so, again, if we're going to do the capital with the communications, the infrastructure, the permanent, where do we find the cleanups should go under? Do they go under enhancements? What bucket do you guys think they should fall under? Capital or non-capital?
Let me interject. Sure. And this will address this. My second thing I was going to talk about. I think I've emailed everyone ahead of time. If you didn't get the email last week, I got a hard copy. But this is, I mean, it's good to look back at the history and where we came from. So this is a 2009 document that kind of created everything.
You guys get this?
Did not.
And let me just start, when things started out,
Oh, I know.
it had the exact split. We had $75,000. It went 50 capital, 25, wasn't called community enhancement then, but community enhancement. And on our benefit, the engineering department was obligated to spend, if they were able to, with the street outlay, spend up to $200,000 on our behalf in capital. That was in '09. $200,000, okay? That was Ward 8 got 200,000, 5, 9, 1. Everybody got $200,000, up to $200,000. Coming forward to right now, 2024, the amount spent on capital for Ward 5 in 2024 was $1 million, $995,000. Ward 8 was $971,000. Ward 9 was $981,000. And Dan was, new guy, only $550,000 from $200,000. So you see the change that they spent $200,000 and basically spent 5 times that amount in 2024. So what does that mean? That means you as a ward alderman did not have to spend all that extra money. Your money kept growing, but it's growing in engineering, but it's growing for you, okay? The flip side of that is, as we all know, our community enhancement started at $25,000, it's always been $25,000, it's never changed. It's always been $25,000. Now, what we discussed in finance, of course, our casino moving, it's a very delicate situation. We don't want to mess with that. We appreciate everything that they do. So what I came down to, one thing that could help this is just to change our split. So we get $75,000 each year. The split would be 50-50, 37.5, 37.5. And Alderwoman Smith is correct. You need to look at your current year on what you're going to spend. But of course, the only thing you can use back money for before 24 that we held out of this is for capital. You can't use any of that money for community enhancement. So if you have $25,001, you're not going to go there. You can spend as much as capital, and it should be that way. Our back money should be for capital, should be for projects building up our ward. I think if we do that, do the split 50-50, I don't think we have to kind of quibble on moving our cleanups, our shred events. I think they could stay right where they have been in community enhancement.
So I just want to get this straight, which I think I'm kind of liking here. So the things we mentioned about the communications and the permanence type of thing in the grant programs go into the capital bucket. In addition to 50-50 split, now you don't have to worry about your cleanup days and your shred events and maybe some other things we're not thinking of.
They stay right there in community enhancement. Community enhancement is 37.5, capital's 37.5. You want to go over in your capital, you want to do more, of course, dip back into.
Oh, yeah, you can always go the other, yeah.
Yeah, you can always go and get more. You can never go get more community enhancement.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So that would mean
Mike.
7 and, thank you. So that would mean, again, using rough number, 7,000 and then a 5,000 grant. So if that would stay in, that would go to once it's redefined with the capital budget, is that what you're saying? Or that stay in the community enhancements like?
No, the cleanup events?
No, the postage and mailer and the grant programs.
Yeah, that's community, that's capital and infrastructure and communication.
So that would mean 37.5, and let's just say, so that would be 12,000, so what, 37, 27, 25 grand, if everybody does that, obviously. So that would be 25 for a quote-unquote capital project, and 37.5, because most people do mailers, I'm assuming most ward folks do mailers, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
And most, 9 out of the, well, that must be 2, because I know Alderman, my colleague here has a grant program as well, too. So what is that, 8 out of the 10 or ward-specific aldermen have grant programs? I would
Yeah,
say?
so from what I understand, all the grant programs, except the one that Alderman Bug mentioned about his, would fall
Yeah.
under the.
No, I'm saying, just Alderman Leish is the only alderman that has a grant program, so 8 of the other,
Of the Alderman at large.
yeah, have that.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
the other alderman, yeah, that,
Yeah.
non.
Well,
yeah.
the scholarships would remain in community enhancement. They are
Oh,
top
yeah,
of
yeah,
grant
right,
program.
right.
Okay, that's,
I,
okay. I like the idea
I
of
kinda like
splitting
that.
something up like that. I do.
Here's the other thing too that we have to understand. With this, we always talk about this kind of stuff. Doesn't mean if we did this for a year, the ideas we had today, we put in, and at the end of the year, we reevaluate, said, how did it work? Doesn't mean we can't change, because sometimes you don't know. We're gonna do the best we can initially, But then we say, we should tweak this because we didn't see this flaw, and then we fix it next year. Probably not a major flaw, but it would be something, so no matter what we do early on, we could amend it later on if we find some problem. So I'm pretty good with those suggestions we made today. I think it accomplishes what the spirit of what we were trying to do, yet has a structure, because we're out of structure. Believe me, the discipline has been awful, and we're gonna spend money, which is good too. So I think it kind of checks a lot of boxes, what we're talking about today. So I would go along with all those ideas.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Even if I can, I'm going to ask it.
I assume that.
So I just want to reiterate, so if I restate, that means I really understand it. So you're talking about taking the 75, cut it in half. Then we're going to do the community enhancements, infrastructures, permanent, and grants will go under the capital. The non-capital, excuse me, I missed,
Right,
let me,
you're right.
communications, infrastructure, permanent, anything permanent, and grants will go under capital. Non-capital would be community enhancements, shred events, scholarships, activities, events type thing. Is that correct?
It is, except for grants. You cannot move, because there's different type of grants,
Yeah, so-
so you can't move all grants. So grants, when they come forward to wrap,
Decide where they go.
the ward alderman would say what is coming
Okay.
out of it.
Okay, so my grant program is a capital project, so then that will be able
And
to
mine
go
is not.
into capital. And yours is not, so that'll be done ward by ward, probably in some cases, grant by grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say grant by grant, yes.
I'm in.
Yeah.
And when we changed the scholarships, when we did that back in January, we said that is community enhancement.
Yeah.
That's not
This is a good solution.
Could
a capital thing.
Could I ask legal to come up here, because my suggestion is going to be, is that we don't do anything today. We tell COW tonight what we talked about, lay out why we did it, and then in the next rep meeting, put it all into motion. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Just throw it through our colleagues, say, this is kind of what we're doing, this is why. And then the next rep meeting, we just make the changes, in the rep. All right.
Patrick Leaf?
Oh.
Patrick left?
I am not an attorney.
You just play
Council-
one on TV?
Yes, council had to leave, but I'll ask that they go back and listen to the recording, and then we can follow up. It sounds like
Yeah.
we have until the next, I think January 7th is the next RAP meeting
Yeah.
to put something together, so we
Yeah.
can do that.
But I think conveying that before we put it into writing would be good, just to make sure
Yeah.
we're not missing something. And our colleagues today chime in. I think what we're all seeing is something pretty good.
So,
I would
yeah.
be shocked if they didn't
And
go
we're
along with this. And then we just say, okay, next rep meeting, we're putting into play, we're putting in the writing, and get it done.
So we'll move forward at COW, discuss it further, and then kick it back to
So
rapid.
Chairman,
Yeah,
you
here,
would,
this discussion.
you
Yeah.
would tell everybody what the discussion that we
Yeah.
had,
Okay.
the 75
I
and
knew I
half.
should have
and-
taken notes, so.
Yeah,
And also,
I got notes if you need.
yeah, and also,
Yeah.
the fact that it is gonna be retroactive back to January 1, 2025. Of course, finance is, aside from the mayor's office and legal, Mr. Minnick has to be able to,
Right.
put all that together.
Right. That's-
Put our buckets together, so, yeah.
I think so. And I think that the level of comfort is gonna be much greater now too.
I would
just think
agree
there were
with
some
that.
people that were a little bit going over the edge, and now I think this will soothe all the wounds.
Yeah, I would agree. Any other questions or comments from the committee itself?
No, I just wanted to make a comment.
Sure.
I'm only got 4 months in, so it's hard to look at the 12-month picture. But it was trying to make plans, planning ahead, and it was going to be challenging to do, looking at different things like the newsletter, the cleanup days, the shred days. We pay for postage for some of the neighborhood groups, so that's,
feel your pain,
eats into
bro.
your 25,000. So, I mean, if I add all those together, even the sign, maintaining the sign, we have a Ward 1 sign, that would come out of the 25, so I'd be almost, zero.
So
this would- this- this would
37.5
be-
is good.
So this is a good change,
Yeah.
so I'm supportive of it.
Excellent. Side note, your sign, and maintenance of your sign, that's capital.
I would think
I
that
would
would be a
think that would
capital.
happen too. We have to remember
That's what they
too,
told me, but,
we have to remember too, that if
Well,
there is a
we
gray
discussed
area.
that. I got a sign.
There's a gray area,
Yeah, that's capital.
and you want to move money from non-capital or capital to non-capital, there
can
is a vehicle for that. It's going to the finance committee.
Yeah.
So my guess was if you took that to the finance committee, because nobody knew, and it's the maintenance for your sign, I'm gonna guess it'd probably be a 5-0 vote that, yeah, that's not a problem. That'd be my guess. So we do have ways, we have discretionary paths to go if we find a challenge along the
Yeah,
way.
there is an out if need be or
Absolutely.
something like that, so.
Think of anything more permanent than the.
That's something-
Oh, sure, right,
Right,
right. That's why
right.
it's easier.
I
Agreed.
would agree, so.
All right,
And then just Alderman Lacy has a comment here?
Thanks. I think it's an excellent, go to 50/50 is excellent. One question I had is, I know some people have bought the mobile speed radar devices. I don't know if that falls into permanence, or does it fall on the other
it actually was
the other
defined
bucket?
in here.
Yeah.
And I do,
Approved pedestrian and traffic control.
It would be
and that would
under
fall under
permanent, yes.
capital.
So that's what they have under their definition, so thank you very much. Right, so that, yeah, we would be good with
Because
that.
that would
Yeah.
stay permanently in that ward.
Yeah,
Those are-
yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
something
the other thing
tangible,
is
I would say,
to
too.
agree with Alderwoman Smith about relieving some of the.
Wait, will you say that again?
to
Say that
agreeing,
first line.
agreeing with Alderwoman Smith.
This has
You
been
know,
recorded, right?
I tried doing it officially a second time, but I wasn't allowed to speak. So this is the second time, but it would be the third. No, I think relieving some of the restrictions, and I know that Alderwoman Garza particularly wanted to remove the $3,000 limit without having to come back to, I don't remember if it was RAP or finance to get that. So you might want to look at that. And then my only other thought is, instead of communications, if you're making that one bucket, maybe make it administrative, simply because I know that I've had to use alderman funds I went to some conference and to pay for parking or something like that. It wasn't huge, but I think it comes out of that bucket.
So, duly noted, yes. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And a motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman
Nicely
Franco.
done.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? This
I
com-
had a
oh,
question. I wanted to
Sure,
ask
go
a
ahead.
question. So capital grants, like any grants that are related to capital enhancements, will go to capital as carryover for next year? Like at the end of the year, what happens to the balance that was remaining from my grant? Or do I have to spell it out that I want to, like, I thought we are going to also decide for the process of how are we going to carry over our money at TRAP?
So,
I thought that was a
I
done deal.
thought that was a done
That's
deal,
a
yeah.
done
So
deal.
we are just sending an email to Chris Minnick, and that will be it?
So we, somebody remind me if I'm wrong, but we approved this last January. So all the money is being carried over to, you're not losing any money this year. Now, if there's some purchases or something you want to do at the last second and it's possible and legal, have at it. You know, so if you want to do something with your money and you want to talk to Chris about it, that's fine to do.
You're talking about your non-capital, if you got non-capital.
Well, yeah, if it's
Yeah.
not capital, right.
Because
So
rolls
capital's rolling over,
Yeah.
right. So your grant program, what is your grant program for?
Community enhancements, permanent enhancements,
I would say
capital.
So that,
But-
you could have used, so that's coming out of your capital or.
would stay there anyways,
funds
I would
anyway,
say,
so that
yeah.
would stay in there
So
anyway.
we are not spelling that funds because nothing was used out of it or 10,000 is remaining. I don't have to specify that I'm renewing my grant. Or it is going for grant
If-
again. Or is it
Based on
going
what
to
we're gonna
capital?
pass in January,
Yeah.
Grant
it's
money.
grant money is going to go in the bucket that we want it to be in, not in the
Capital.
other bucket,
yeah,
not in
it's
the
gonna be in
other.
capital, yeah, so.
It's gonna go in the capital bucket, so you're good.
Another thing, so say 10,000 is remaining from this year's grant and I have a $20,000 grant, will it become 30,000 next year or it'll be just 20,000?
Depends on what you want it to be. It will roll back into
Capital.
your capital, but as you reinstate your grant program, you choose how much you want to put into your grant program.
And then that, let's say if it was $10,000 difference would stay in capital and be allocated to
Yes, if
something
you
else.
didn't put it
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
in there, it would, if you chose not to put it in there to make it 20, that 10 would stay in your capital, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Let me ask a question, because, yeah, some people ask this and I didn't quite understand. And this is the time, this is discussion. Did all 10 ward aldermen have a meeting with their administrator to set their budget and move things to 2025?
I did.
I did.
Okay, everyone should have had that, and some people were saying that they didn't have it or didn't understand.
Crystal
The
Golden, Alderman's
process.
office.
Thank you, Crystal.
Supervisor. I sat in every single budget meeting, so every ward alderman had one. The alderman at large just did not have one since they
Right.
get what they get and there's no
Peasants, yeah.
different accounts. But every ward alderman did have one and I sat in every single one of them.
Okay. And, I mean, in that meeting, you designate
Yes,
2025, moving money forward, or what is for, the amount?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? This meeting is adjourned at 3:50 PM.